Middle, 24/7 Sports.
Thanks, Jerry. Ryan, so many young guys playing and playing well. Is this kind of what you expected? I know you guys knew you had a special freshman class, but this many guys playing and playing big roles?
No, probably not this much, like you said. But I just think back on the conversations we had in the spring and the preseason going into this year, feeling like there was a little bit of a gap of playing time coming off of last year, and trying to figure out what that was going to be like this year because we had so many unknowns of guys who either are in the program 2 and 3 years who didn't have experience, or the young guys coming in. And so there's a lot of competition going on across the board, and that's the good thing. And I think you're starting to see guys settle into roles.
How is CJ feeling, and are you confident he'll be able to play this week?
We'll see how today goes. I thought the week helped him, and it sounds like it's going in the right direction. So we're hoping for a great day of practice today.
Yeah, Ryan, just to follow up on that, if CJ is fully healthy in your mind, is he your starter on Saturday?
Yes.
You were asked about a lot of the young guys playing. Like when you look at that, do you feel like you need those young guys to keep coming and play bigger and bigger roles as the season progresses if this team is going to achieve its goals this year?
Yeah, and I think that in 4 games you've seen a lot of progress across the board, but there's still a lot to be done. And if we're going to get to where we want to be this season, then these guys are going to have to continue to build. And it's everybody. It's not just the young guys. It's the older guys who maybe haven't played as much either. And it's just continuing to get back to work. And, I think sometimes you go into a season with certain expectations of what's going to come. And whether it happens or not, that's, unique to each individual. But working and putting in days of work every day is what's critical, and just grinding through all that. And so here we are back in conference play, and I think we're better than where we were 4 weeks ago.
Second or left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Just one more thing about the quarterbacks, assuming he is feeling a little sore. Are you giving Kyle any first-team reps at all this week, just as a security blanket, just in case CJ's not ready to go on Saturday?
I mean, we spread the reps around, and we'll just see how everybody's feeling this week, and then we'll kind of go from there. But typically, the way that we do it is, whoever's starting in that game will typically get the majority of the first-team reps.
Ryan, you said after the game you wanted to wait to review Kayvon Pope and some of the details surrounding that incident. What ultimately made you want to go in the direction to dismiss him from the team?
Yeah, I mean, there was an incident there that, we addressed, and, he's removed from the team. And so, our focus right now is on Rutgers. But, there has to be consequences for actions. And certainly, for him, his emotions got a little bit out of hand there, and I thought he's done a good job of taking accountability, and we'll focus on moving forward.
Second row left, Nathan Means, Cleveland.com. Nathan Barrett.
With the quarterback evaluation, how do you, at this stage of the season, I assume it's kind of going on all the time, but balancing the difference between who's better right now and who might be better in November? Like what is going on with that, and how do you assess that?
Yeah, I mean, just do it like you do every other position. You try to project the best you can based on what you see in practice, and then, what you're going to see in a game. And you do whatever you think is best to go win the game that week. And so that's what we're doing. You look every day at practice, and hopefully there's growth along the way. And so that's what we're going to do. I mean, we have 3 young guys that are doing this all for the first time. And so while that can be, a challenge, it's also good because everything you're investing, you're hoping to get back in the future.
Is it part of who you decide to start each week, who that helps more in November? Do you see what I'm asking there, or is it all just about who is the best quarterback for this next game?
Yeah, I think that, you always want to plan for the future. And it's not really, about saying like, what's exactly going on this week. Is, what's your body of work going to be by the end of the season?
Second row right, Austin Ward, Letterman Row.
Ryan, does the in-game, I know this is a little bit of a hypothetical, does the in-game decision-making change at all at quarterback? Before the first 3 weeks, Kyle had just never been on the field, so you probably didn't want to put him in that situation. Now that he's started, will that, enter your thoughts on a game day if CJ's struggling or looks hurt or anything like that?
No, not any more than it was a couple weeks ago. I think now it's great to have reps under our belt so that we know what we have. But I've said from the beginning it's going to take all three guys to get through the season, and it's already week 4, and all three guys have played. So, again, we'll assess it this week and see how guys are feeling and go from there.
When you look not just at your team, but Clemson or Oklahoma when they struggle, it seems to be a trend across college football. Do you think, you can only talk about your own team, I guess, but how much of that is what everybody went through a year ago? Are we underestimating how significant that is for players?
I think you bring up a good point. I think that for us, certainly there's been a little bit of a recalibration because coming off of last season, there was a lot of missed play and missed reps. And so you came into this season with a lot of guys competing for a lot of spots. And, and the truth is, at the end of the day, we have a lot of great guys in our program and a lot of guys who have worked really, really hard, in our program. But at the end of the day, it comes down to how you perform. And, I think we have a great group of guys who are working really, really hard, and they're going to continue to do that. And the more that they understand this is about our team and not just about them, I think is very, very important. I think there's been a lot of changes as well in college football in certainly the last year, but in the last 2 to 3 years. That combined with everything that went on with COVID, I think there's a lot of dynamics at play here, and we're very, very fortunate because we have such great guys here. But I think it's something that's definitely, you need to recognize. Yeah.
Fourth row right, Rob Oliver, Columbus Dispatch.
We've talked so much about young guys, so many young guys. We've talked a lot about performance on the field. Can you take the temperature of the leadership issue of this team? Is it where you want it to be? Do you need older guys to step up? And the challenge of when there's so many young guys, is there a void, leadership void?
Well, I think that when you actually get out there and play and do the things that you're expecting yourself to do, you feel more empowered to take more of a leadership role. I still think we do have some really good guys who maybe haven't had as much of an impact on the field as they would have liked, who have had great leadership. But I think that when you're on the field and you're playing games, if you put it on the field, then I think that you feel, again, a little bit stronger about taking that step forward in leadership. So it's evolving. Again, we do have some really good guys who have shown good leadership, but as we're settling into these roles, I think that's kind of evolving over these past couple of weeks.
Another thing I would think would be a challenge is quarterback's the most important position. You've got freshmen and true freshmen here. In terms, again, the leadership issue, is it a challenge to get older guys to rally around somebody who's 18 years old? I mean, in your experience, how do you navigate that?
Well, I think that in the perfect order of things, your older guys are the ones who are the leaders, who are the ones who are playing, and sometimes when you have younger guys come in, that does change the dynamic a little bit. But that's football, and every team has its own different journey along the way, and I think this year that we're experiencing some of that, like you're saying, yeah.
Third row right, Tom Moore, Buckeye School.
Ryan, when you are making an evaluation on a fourth down, go for it, punt, kick, whatever, what factors into that decision for you? Game state, quality of opponent, all that kind of stuff. How much does the quality of the opponent change what you might do in that kind of situation?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into that, and certainly have studied all the analytics that go with that. Certainly when I was in the NFL and now in college, but there's so many things that come into play, like where you are in the game, where you are field position wise. Does it make sense to punt and just gain 15, 20 yards? Or if you get a touchback, are the 3 points really worth it in that moment, or do you feel like it's a higher scoring game and you got to get a touchdown? But I think the other part that's important is, do you have a good play? It's one thing to go for it. It's another thing to know you have a good play in that moment. It's 4th and 2 on the plus 35-yard line, and you feel really confident this play is going to work. Or, man, I don't have much here. We better punt. And I think that all those things come into play for sure.
There are companies that do, professional analytics, like Championship Analytics, for example, produces like binders for schools. Do you guys have a source for that kind of stuff? Is that stuff you produce internally? Is that, how do you generate those decisions?
Yeah, we study that internally here for sure. And I think that, you look at those numbers and you look at the statistics, but there's so many different variables at play when you're talking about situations like that. I do think, when you're in the NFL, where everybody's pretty much equal and everybody has the same set of, situation, then that's one thing. But I think in college, there's just a lot of different dynamics. The conferences, the situations are just very, very different. And I think so much of it has to do with, your team, how you think the game is going and feel. But there's also some times where you got to look at the numbers on it to say, when is it worth punting? When is it worth going for it?
Fourth row middle, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, we've seen Travion seems establish himself as the starter running back. What would be the ideal carries for him? Assuming a normal game and not one like this past Saturday where you get up big and can get some other guys in the game. What do you kind of want the balance to be with your running back?
Yeah, usually, right. We want to be balanced for sure, and we want to make sure that run pass is pretty equal. But right in the 20 carry range is usually pretty good. But we do have a lot of depth there too, so we feel like we can play some depth and keep him fresh. He still is young, but somewhere in that area is usually pretty good.
And we saw Master and Mayan. We didn't see Mayan 2 weeks ago. You mentioned he was missed practice. The balance between those two, is that a week-to-week thing, who comes in certain situations, or are those guys kind of set in a certain structure? I
don't know if it's set. I think that Master ran harder last week. I thought he did some really good things, and he continues to build on that. This is a guy who, could have got frustrated, along the way, but has just kept working. And I've been very, very impressed with that, and he's playing good football right now, and he deserves to run. And Mayan, is practicing a little bit better now, and he's working through some things. But we'll continue to work on those guys. But you can see both of them have the ability to do it, and it'll be a little bit week to week. But I think that Master has asserted himself here the last couple of weeks.
Just real quick, we saw Evan late in the game scored the touchdown. Getting him out on the field, I don't know what he figures to be this year. Maybe that, though, could be important for his future.
Yeah, no, I think Evan has a lot of talent. I think that this year is going to be very, very important for him to grow and build. But one thing that I think Evan's done a really good job of, he's not trying to compare himself to anybody else. And I think sometimes in this world with people who surround him, with family, with people's friends, with social media, it's easy to do that. Say, well, why aren't you doing this, or compare yourself to somebody else. And that's not really a recipe for success. The recipe for success is focusing on yourself and just getting better and having a long-term approach. And I think Evan's done a very, very good job of that. And I think you're going to see a really good player here in the future.
Go to the far right, Tony Bergman, Buckeye School.
Brian, you mentioned players finding their roles. Are you seeing that in the secondary as well as maybe Lathan Ransom moves back a little, Cam Martinez moves in? Are you seeing that? Are you happy with what you're seeing?
Yeah, we'll see. We have a bigger challenge this week, but I think you're starting to see guys make plays. I think you're seeing, Denzel kind of, settle into a role here. You're seeing Ronnie Hickman settle into a role. We have moved Lathan around a little bit, so he's working through that. Cam's made some plays. But yeah, we're kind of looking to really solidify those roles, but it is still good to have some depth there and roll some guys. But you can see certainly there's not as much rolling as there was the first couple of weeks.
And then, do you provide any update on Harry Miller?
Yep. So Harry, he's been dealing with some health issues, and he's going to, come back this week and be part of the team, which we're all excited about, and get back to work.
Second row right, Tim May, Letterman Row.
Ryan, you probably went to bed about 2:30 on Sunday morning. Probably woke up about 4, I'm thinking.
Didn't sleep, but that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. What was the thought? What were the thoughts that were keeping you up? Was it dealing with the Dejuan Pope situation? Was it, hey, I've got a quarterback deal. Here's my number one quarterback, going to be ready this week. Hey, Rutgers looks a lot better than it did 3 years ago. The Big Ten East looks a lot better than it did 2 months ago. Just kind of go through that litany and how you compartmentalize and think on different things at different times.
Yeah. That's why, it's hard to sleep, because your mind races and all those things go through your mind. But specifically, to share my thoughts after the game, I was very, very excited about just the energy after the first drive. I just thought we played harder. I thought we had energy on the sideline. I thought the guys played and had fun across the board. I just thought you just felt that on the sideline. And then certainly, the incident that happened, it bothered me. And so I had a hard time sleeping that night. But looking back on the team, there was just so many good things there. So it was like kind of this back and forth. And then obviously, you're getting back into the conference and all that comes with this week.
And Dejuan Jones seems to be playing not just competently and confidently, but almost with a joy out there. Do you see that in him too when you watch video? And just, are you still a little bit surprised the way this guy has come along, I guess?
Well, I think he's played well. He certainly has his best football ahead of him, and he still has a lot of work to do. But the energy that he's bringing, seeing him run down the field and all those type of things, it's contagious. He likes playing the game, and then that's what I'm talking about. Those type of steps that we're taking right now are huge, and now he's got to continue to build on that. Again, bigger challenge this week. But when he's on and he's doing, things the right way and using really good discipline and he's preparing at a high level, which I thought he had a really good week of preparation last week, much better than a week before. All of a sudden he's starting to play better. He's going to have to do it again this week, bigger challenge.
Over here far right, second row, Clay Hall, WSYX.
Outside these walls, you're probably here, but did you see Justin Fields getting sacked 9 times, and what did it prompt in you?
Yeah, no, I didn't see it. All I did was read and hear about it, and so I'm not sure exactly, how that shook. Not a great start, but there's a lot of young quarterbacks that haven't had great starts. And you think about Peyton Manning's rookie season and everything he went through there, and the hardest thing in that league is just being able to pull yourself off the canvas and continue to work through. He and I talked about that after the Northwestern game, that when you go to the NFL, you're going to have several days just like this, just days you wake up and you got to go figure it out again. And I think what survives in that league is the resilience of young quarterbacks to continue to identify what went wrong and get better and fix it. And so one thing I know about him is he's competitively tough, and he'll fix the problems and he'll be back.
Did you text him at all, or
I haven't had a chance to talk to him. No.
Deep back right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Ryan, with your offensive line, you guys have had Thayer out now for a little bit. It seems like you guys are starting to develop some chemistry there. How are you going to balance when he's ready to come back with, keeping that chemistry, but also making sure that your best 5 are on the field?
Yeah, I mean, the good news is we've built some depth there, so we have the ability to roll some guys, but we'll take into consideration that chemistry, like you're saying. And, it kind of works itself out more times than not, where, someone gets banged up or whatever, and you have to get another guy in there. And, the offensive line is not someone that, typically that you roll positions and roll guys in and out. But, we'll talk to the O-line this week and have Stud look at it and see if that's appropriate this week. And if it is, we'll do it.
At linebacker, when you have a couple guys that are veterans leading the team, but you have these young guys emerging, do you start to see a little bit of, a culture shift in the room? And I'm not saying it's like addition by subtraction, but is it almost like a little healthy to see that culture shift to the guys who are starting to produce?
I think every year is a new dynamic, and we lost a lot of strong leadership in that room. And so this year it's different. And, anytime you lose 4 players from one position group like that who have such a strong presence and so much production, it's going to be bumpy. And I think they're starting to forge that, new identity a little bit. But, it has been a work in progress this year for sure.
Over here to the far right, Don Berry, WPSD, or WBNS, 10 TV.
Thank you, Jerry.
That's Paducah, Kentucky,
Yes, sir.
WPSD.
Thank you very much. Ryan, you look at Rutgers, how big of a challenge, and how about the Greg Schiano factor?
Yeah, I think he's done a very, very good job, in these past 2 years of getting his team ready, and does a good job coaching in all 3 phases. It is a challenge going on the road, and I think you see what he did last year. Certainly, playing some really good football, and then last week, took up north all the way to the fourth quarter. Played excellent defense in the fourth quarter. Has the guys believing and playing hard. So, it's going to be a Big Ten conference, road game that we got to do a really good job and, get on the road and handle the environment. It'll be a good environment there. He'll have them rocking, and need a great week of preparation.
The youth movement on this team is well documented. With that said, do you feel like your defense is turned the corner, or do you really like what you're seeing now?
I think we've made some strides, and I think this week will be another big test for us. But I think you just overall see us changing some things up, playing with great aggression. But again, we'll know that more here in a couple of weeks and figure out where we're at. We got a big challenge this week, and as it continues to grow, I don't think that the answer's here yet. We got to We got to see where we're at in this thing. It's week to week and be able to bring it week to week. It's not, just, you do a good job one week and then move on. And again, it's going to be a whole different game this week, whole different challenge.
Second row left, Doug Lameries, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, I just want to ask about Paris Johnson. It's like big time guy, big time recruit, moved inside. I feel like we haven't talked about him much. How's he? Maybe just because he's doing his job every week. I don't know. How's he played so far?
I think anytime when you don't notice a guard, then he's doing a heck of a job. I think his approach has been excellent. He's learning the position. It's not easy in there, and I think that's something that probably got glossed over was, Luke Whippler, Paris Johnson, Dejuan Jones. Nick gets moved to left. Thayer goes inside. I mean, it's 5 guys doing something new for the first time. And while they've practiced together against our defense, there's a style there, there's a 4-down scheme, kind of the same thing over and over again. Now you see different patterns, different styles, different spacings, and then coming over to the sideline and making adjustments, and then certainly not having Stud here for those couple weeks. I mean, that was a bumpy time for those guys, and I give them a lot of credit. They've stuck together. I think the offensive line room, their culture, their energy, their dedication, their buy-in is off the charts, and I give Stud a lot of credit for that, for maintaining that during this time. But Paris is one of those guys that's a major contributor to that.
You've mentioned a couple times this season, as we see maybe guys playing time change from week to week, you say, well, they practice better,
Right.
and that affected it. We know that's how it always is, right? The better you practice, the more opportunities you get. But are you tying that together any more this year than in past years? I mean, it feels like you guys aren't afraid to say, hey, well, just because this guy got 40 snaps last week, maybe he'll get 5 this week because somebody else had a better week of practice. How's that working out?
Well, I think it's working out, and I think we're getting better. But I also think, to your point, there were so many guys with such little experience and such few snaps that it's like, you're trying to figure out what is the best moving forward, and you want to give guys opportunities to play, but at the end of the day, they have to perform. And so what do you go on? You go on their performance in a game, and then you try to project the best you can based on what you see in practice. And when you have so many guys who have such little experience, there's some projecting that goes on there, and all you can do is go on what you see.
And I think we could ask you 50 questions about 4th down decision making because it could be so fascinating. Sometimes in a world where it feels like you need 7s to win games these days, 3s aren't going to win you many games anymore. Can a punt in the right situation be more aggressive than a long field goal? If you think, we're going to punt them down, pin them inside the 5, stop them, get it back, and try for another 7.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the whole idea of the plan to win and playing the field position game is exactly what you just said. But you have to execute it, and then you actually have to stop them, and then you have to get the ball back. I mean, those are the things you consider when you're making those decisions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Deep left, Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now and Sports Illustrated.
Hey, Coach, I want to know from a position group perspective. You've got 4 games under your belt now, where you were going into week 1, where you are after week 4. Which group has made the most progress?
I have to think about that for a sec. Since week 1, I'd probably say the defensive backs and probably the offensive line. I'd say. I guess you could say the running backs because of the way Trey's run. But there's been progress across the board. But those probably stick out.
I think we're going to have a chance to talk to Haskell Garrett. There's probably nobody on your team that's been through, as much as he's been through in the last 2 years, at least not that we know of. He seems to have this lightness about him. He's holding hands with his nephews coming off the field. He's playing, having fun. Had a huge game last week. What's been the most enjoyable thing that you've been able to witness watching him grow and everything he's gone through?
Well, I just think, again, we all know it's well documented what happened to him, and then him being able to respond the way he did. I think that was kind of a crossroads for him, and that was huge for him as a person. The football player is the football player, but I think that he's really changed as a person, just in a lot of ways, and because of that, he's going to be a great dad. He's going to be a really good husband, and he's going to be successful whatever he does after football. Hopefully, that's after a long career in the NFL. But that's probably what I'm most proud of.
Second row right, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, you probably can't answer this with any certainty until you go through practice, but what's your level of confidence that CJ's shoulder will be good enough for him to start? And can you give any details on what the shoulder issue is?
Yeah, I really can't do that. Yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic that coming off of Sunday's practice and the feedback that I've got from the trainers and our medical staff and from CJ, that we'll be ready to move forward this week.
How did Kyle play, now that you've watched it in detail?
He was inconsistent, with some of his reads. I thought that early on he was a little nervous. He did make some nice throws when he saw it, and I thought there were some really good plays in there. But there was also some that he kind of got away with, and we just got to do a great job of recognizing, what the pre-snap movement keys are, the post-snap movement keys are, and just trust our eyes. But when you're starting for the first time, there's a lot going on, and I think the next time he's in that moment, he'll be a little bit more settled.
And I know you don't want to belabor what happened with Kayvon, but what exactly happened? I didn't actually see it, but I guess he came on the field and was waved off. Can you explain what happened?
Yeah, I'd rather not get into all that right now. I kind of just want to move forward.
Fourth row left, Bill Landis, The Athletic.
Ryan, were you at all open to the idea that Kyle could have played so well that he just sort of took the job and ran with it moving forward? And how does the fact that, he wasn't quite that, also wasn't terrible, was kind of right down the middle,
Right.
how does that, I don't know, complicate your evaluation and decision at that position moving forward?
Not right now. I mean, we'll continue to build and grow, and it was good to get snaps under his belt, and same thing with Jack. I think it was good for both of those guys as we move forward and just see what comes this next couple of weeks. But Kyle, for the most part, and so same thing with Jack, they pretty much played the way that they practiced. And so, but I think now it gives them a little bit more of a reference point moving forward of, okay, this is maybe how it looks in practice, but this is the reality in the game.
You mentioned a couple times here, there's first and second year guys who are playing in place of probably third, fourth, and fifth year guys who maybe anticipated a different role for them. I know that can be complicated to manage at times. So it's just like, how has that impacted the vibe of the team at all, if in any way?
Well, I think it's what we were talking about before, is just, you kind of count on maybe some of the older guys who are playing to be the strong leaders, the guys that you're counting on in the field to be the voice. And, when some of those guys are still trying to get those reps under their belt and find their role and find their identity, then, it makes for, sometimes a dynamic that, isn't ideal. But the idea is that as we move forward and we start to fill those roles, we have some guys who have really good leadership skills. And I think they're going to really embrace those. And you're starting to see that already. I thought last week some guys stepped up and spoke in front of the team, 3 different guys and 3 different moments, and the message was right on point. And so we're getting there, but it is a work in progress for sure.
Those guys were good stuff.
Yeah, it was right after the game. It was Garrett Wilson in the locker room. It was Xavier Johnson in front of the team before one of the practices, and it was Dejuan Cage after a Thursday practice. And the messages were great. Garrett's message was that, what is our standard? We have to create the standard here. It's not about just winning and losing, and that was last week. And then Xavier Johnson talked about that every rep matters. We can't let reps get away from us, which is something that we learned from Pete Warner the year before. And then Dejuan Cage was just talking about how we hadn't quite played a whole game 9 units strong, and that we weren't quite there yet. And let's bring this thing together. So when you start to hear those things from your players and from your teammates, then you're starting to get there. And I think that's all part of this process and this building process as we go into, I guess, the middle part of the season.
Just a few more. Back row left, What's Snyder, back row.
Hey, Ryan, everybody kind of knew that when Coach Gianna went back to Rutgers, they would have a chance to turn this around. Going into that first half, it could have been 24-3 and then name your score. I'm sure most people thought that. What is happening? Because as coaches, you see the film and you can see body language, just how they go. I'm not talking scheme, just about how they carry themselves. What is happening there?
I mean, I'm not there, so I don't know, but I know that they've been very competitive and they've played with great effort, and they're executing what they've been asked to execute, and with execution fuels emotion, and it sounds and seems like they're buying into what Greg's preaching to them.
With regard to the offensive line, we were at practice and all of a sudden we saw these bodies at different positions. When did that start? I mean, it's just, a lot of people would call it like weird science, that you would take something that's been successful and then taking that chance to have people accept it and buy into it and actually have it work.
You talk about having so many guys in?
Changing your offensive line the way you did.
Oh, well, the idea is that you try to find, the best 5. And, that means we had to move some pieces around. And, I think that, we have kind of a best 6 right now, with Matt is proven that he can play with those guys. And that's been great. But that's, again, when you talk about the culture of that room, Thayer Munford is one of the more unselfish players I've ever been around. That's why he's our Block O recipient. That's why he's a captain. He went and said, no, what's better for the team is that I moved to guard. Now, it certainly is going to pay huge dividends for him down the road, because I think a lot of clubs will be able to see him play multiple positions. He's already proven himself at tackle. Now he's proven he can play guard. But, the easy thing for him to say is, well, I'm not moving. But he didn't do that. He put the Buckeyes first. He put the team first. And that goes to speak on the culture of that room and how impressed I've been with the unselfishness of that entire room. And to your point, it allowed us to put the best 5 on the field.
Ryan, I think you're up to 9 transfers now out of the 2018 class. You've got a couple other guys in that class who are dealing with long-term injuries. Is there a reason behind that attrition that you can see, and how do you go about covering the loss of what would have been a lot of your senior class?
Yeah, I think when you look around the country, it's similar, if not worse at other places than here. I think for the most part, we've done a really good job in that area. But as we're getting into the season, we're seeing some roles fall into place. That's where you're seeing some of that. And I've never been one to run guys off the team. I guess there's situations I probably could have done that in the spring or the preseason, but that's not the way we do things here. We care about our guys, and so I think, again, it's more a product of the situation in college football right now, where there's one-time transfer, there's name, image, likeness. They can, play for the first 4 games, then decide to walk out with really no penalty, and they get their redshirt year back. I think those are all the dynamics at play, and I think when you look at our guys, we're better than most, and I think that speaks to our culture.
I think also 7 scholarship linebackers. One of them is hurt, and Mitchell. One of them is a true freshman. One of them got here in July. Have you looked at all into moving anybody into that room, like Cade Stover, who played there in high school? Is that something you've looked at?
I mean, I think we're okay right now. We also have, Kate Kuchersky and Ryan Batch, who both play special teams for us and do a good job. And so, I think we're okay right now. But if something disastrous were to happen, we'd have to look into that. But that's where, Steele made the move over there and was very impressed with how he's done that. We added EA to there. So, again, as of right now, I think we're okay. But, yeah, I mean, if we were to take a bunch of hits there, we'd have to come up with a plan.
Third row left, Steve Hellwagen, 24/7 Sports.
Hey, Coach, in recent weeks you've had a few more guys on the availability report. Munford, you said, was not a long-term thing. He's missed a couple games now. Are you hoping to be closer to all hands on deck for Big Ten play, because you're missing 3 veterans there with Vincent, Jean-Baptiste, and Tyreek Smith on your defensive front? I know you don't want to talk about specifics, but in general, are you going to be closer to full go for this week?
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to get some of those guys back for sure. But some of them are linger a little bit. There's not much you can do about that. We want to make sure the guys are safe, but at the end of the day, that's not my decision to make. That's the medical staff's. But yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic that we'll get those guys back for this game.
And just like Buka, the play he made, taking 20-yard pass and turning it into 85. Just is this a guy that needs more touches? I guess, and I know that's hard because you've got so many other guys. But is this a guy that's earned maybe some more opportunities? I guess.
I can't say enough about how impressed I've been with his approach every day. He works really, really hard. He's tough. He plays special teams. He takes his job very serious. He's got a chance to be an excellent leader. I think the future is extremely bright for Emeka, and I couldn't be happier with what he's done so far and his approach, his maturity level. And so, that's a tough room. It's right now. It's to break through, but you don't hear a word from him. And this is a guy who was highly recruited. And, he's only going to get better. And, the more opportunities we can give him, we will when appropriate. But But again, the future is extremely bright for him, and especially as he just keeps working hard and putting days together on top of days with no expectations. And you can see what he's capable of.
And final questions over here. The new guy from Channel 10 is Adam.
Coach, kind of going off of what he just said, Chris Olave with just 2 catches in the last 2 games. Do you have to make a more concerted effort to get him the ball, or is it just sometimes a Garrett game, sometimes a...
Yeah, it kind of is. And when you only play a half of football, it gets harder. And there's just certain times where, you design plays for certain guys, that comes up. But a lot of times when you design a play and you're one of the top receivers in the country, they're going to put 2 guys on them or back them way up and run them out of there, and the ball's going to come somewhere else, And certainly we want to get those guys as many touches as we possibly can. But there's just games where that doesn't happen, and it's a tribute to obviously his talent level, and guys know where he is at all times. Whether it's seeing where he is and doubling him, or just really backing up so that they can't take a shot downfield, as they know he's very, very good at that. But again, I can't say enough about his approach too, and he hasn't let any of that stuff bother him. He's been a good leader in this time, and he's really helped that wide receiver unit get stronger. So he's got a lot of catches ahead of him.